with your favorite veteran and mine, George F. Grundy II. Now, George and I have a long history, so I'm going to lead him in a path, down a path to introduce you to the George that I know and you all don't know, and some of the things that he's been through, encountering being released from service and coming back to his community to be of service to us, and coming back with the attitude of helping, and then finding himself in the middle of the water crisis and how he responded to that, as well as what he's continuing to do in the community and some of his endeavors with community organizations like Habitat for Humanity, and just working with other organizations that work with the community in distributing the water and helping us out of this water crisis. And then working with his new venture out of the Mud Inc. Media and what they do with filming around the city and bringing attention to the city council and what's going on there, as well as updating the community on other events and information. So, with no further ado, I'm going to introduce you to George Grundy. George, tell the community a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. And hello, 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 hello. It is I, George of Grundy II, your favorite veteran. And I was born and raised in Flint, Michigan. Drank the water. Um, just short, went to Pearson, Summerfield, Holmes, Northwestern, graduated Southwestern Academy in 1995. And
So, you're a product of Flint schools,
all the way.
Flint
Through and through.
Community Schools.
North Side, First Ward, Saginaw, Pearson Road area. Um, yeah, hit button 4. Um, so I transitioned from Flint in '99. And
99.
yeah,
Is that the year you graduated?
I graduated in '95.
95.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I worked with my parents up until the time I left. You know.
George and Carolyn Grundy
Yes, ma'am.
of Flint. Some more friends of mine I've known. So tell us about what your desires were after graduation.
Well, my desires after graduation was to get married and have a bunch of children. And
The American Dream.
that was my dream. I didn't want to leave Flint at all. I had no desire to leave Flint. I wanted to be here, create a family, and be around family.
Yeah, family's really big to your mother and father too. So I can understand where that desire comes from. So you graduated from, you said Northwestern?
Southwestern.
Southwestern.
I went to
But you lived
Northwestern
on
my
the
freshman
north
year.
side and you went to Southwestern.
Yeah, it was some finagling going on with the school systems. Uh, I I didn't bounce around because I was a troublemaker or in trouble,
Mm,
but trouble tried to find me
yes.
and bully me. So my mother was an advocate of me going to schools that were not as aggressive with the way that I was being treated
I
by
understand.
other students.
We did have some problems with gangs and things going on back during that time. But then, how did you find yourself signing up for the service?
Well, that's fast forward to 2008. So after I left Flint in '99, I moved to Alabama, and then from Alabama, Georgia, then from Georgia back to Flint. Then
What did you do in Georgia?
Georgia, I worked in the insurance industry for a minute, Allstate Insurance Company, the
Hmm.
Southeast region, for a few years, and I was in the entertainment business. I managed a few artists. Uh, I dabbled in a lot of different things. I was a bridge and a connector for a
Okay,
lot of
a
things.
facilitator.
Yeah.
What was your genre of music?
Um, what was the closest to me when it came to artists? It was R&B and hip hop, but for me, far as music, I don't have a genre that I don't listen to. Let me take that back. I like a lot of different types of music,
Okay.
unless it's trying to tell me to give up my immortal soul.
Oh, okay. If you're not going to go there.
Right.
But that's where a lot of music seems to be going today. A lot of demon influences going on, and we may not want to believe it, but they're actually confessing it on the records. Like it's crazy if you really dive into it, and now everybody's eyes are being opened with this whole Diddy situation. So we digress on that, or we
Okay.
could digress, but we're gonna go fast forward past that and past your desire to be in the industry
Okay.
and go to what led you to go into insurance.
Okay. So pause. No Diddy. Um, and we're gonna go into Allstate Insurance Company. I when I got there, I was living with one of my cousins. We're still in Atlanta, right? We're still talking about
Yeah,
Georgia.
still Atlanta.
So I moved down to Georgia, Atlanta, with one of my cousins, Ronald Allen,
Okay.
and his then the young lady he was with at the time, she was applying for that job, and she told me about it. And so, uh, I had a background in the automobile industry, so I figured that I could work in the auto part department of the insurance agency. So I
Mm.
went out for it, and I got it. Um, and if I was worked in the mailroom, and I knew all 1,500 people in the building before
Wow.
I left, and they knew me. So it was an experience. It was a great experience. I met a lot of people that I considered friends and family, that I grew relationships with there. Um,
Okay. So you were into the white collar market and working selling insurance. Where did you
Mailroom. I was picking up envelopes.
Okay, so where did you go from there? Why didn't you stay at that level? You said something in you must have been driving you to do something else.
Well, I got after about 2 years, 2.5 years, I was wondering where it was leading. So I went to one of the people in HR and asked what the process of, you know, moving up would look like. And she looked at me and said, George, you won't be able to get anywhere, do anything in about 7 years. So
Wow.
I'm looking at life like I'm not about to let 7 years go by and let this place take it.
Right.
So
How old were you, if you don't mind my asking at that time?
that was 2000 and what was that,
Six.
3-ish.
Oh,
That was
three.
2003-ish. I'm 46 now. I was born in 77. Uh,
We got to do the math,
yeah,
folks.
I was in my early 20s. Put it like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's about the time when you start to say, okay, where is my life going as a young adult? So that stands to reason, and you saw that it wasn't going anywhere fast with Allstate. You weren't in the good
Those
hands.
hands weren't trying to take care of me. They look, when I got there, they gave me the money that they had advertised in the paper, fires that caused me to go. They cut it by $5,000 for whatever reasons, and asked me if I would still take the job. And
The devil's in the details,
yeah,
folks. Believe me, when it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. But yeah, so you're 26, you're thinking about the future, and that path didn't look bright at all, state. So then you just started reevaluating, and you decided what?
um, that I wanted more. I wanted different. That wasn't the life I wanted. If I wanted to just stay in a 9 to 5 in that kind of construct, I would have stayed in Flint,
Yeah,
and worked at
it's
General
not
Motors.
much advancement
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
And it seems like our first desire as young people is to get out there and conquer the world, get on your own, get your apartment, get a good job. And then you think about, well, where is this leading and what is my purpose? When did you start thinking about purpose?
Um, well, my parents all well my father he's the largest influencer of purpose for me, because he had his own business. He created his own path. So
Oh my goodness, Grundy's Auto. How many
Grundy's Collision,
times
yeah.
did I bring my car to Grundy's Auto? I tell you, I had everything that went wrong with my car, I took it to Grundy's. So that's how I met the Grundys. And then my aunt, she was into a church, and that's how I met your mother,
Hmm.
uh, Pentecostal Tabernacle family, and at that time. And it was an interesting dynamic seeing the kids that were grown into and born into this family and what they've done since then. And I was one of the young people back then when I first encountered George and his family. Uh, that gives us a different mindset too when we come from a family with strong beliefs in family and God, and it you weren't really a bad kid. You might have been a little rambunctious, but you weren't a bad kid. And that's where a lot of people find ourselves, with no direction and except for the uh, same sex parent that you can look to for an example as far as a role model. And you had a very good one in your father, Mr. Grundy. I really appreciate him for being that staunch member of the community that was a pillar of the community. One of the,
Yeah, my father's a solid guy, you know, through and through. At one point in time when I was younger, I didn't think that he was as solid as he was. So I used to follow him around and see what he was doing, and he was always doing what he said he was doing.
yeah,
So, I father was 100%, is 100%.
man about his business. Yes, he was and is still. We're graced to still have him with us.
Yeah,
So.
most definitely. And what?
So you talked to your father, and he kind of restructured your pathway, or at least gave you an idea.
Now our relationship wasn't like that. It was he. My father at that particular time, he was that he had so much overhead over himself. It was the actions he took and his disciplinarian style of figure it out.
Mm,
Do what you got to do. That was his words to me, and I couldn't stand that. He
mm,
was saying you got to do what you got to do. I didn't know what that meant because there's a
yeah,
lot that I could do, Dad. So what are you talking about? Do what I got to do.
you had to
So
figure it out for yourself.
right, but based on what they instilled in me, I couldn't just jump all the way off the porch because that's not how they raised me.
Right.
So from that point, it was I came back to Michigan after I hit my head a few times, and I came back home, and then my sister a year later she wanted to move and she wanted to go to North Carolina. So my decision, I was getting ready to move to Ontario, Canada. I was going to Canada, and she asked me to move down to North Carolina with her
Mm-hmm.
and my nephew to help her, get established. And I didn't want to because it was either Ohio or Canada because Ohio had a welding program, and I think they after the program they were paying like 29 or 30 some dollars an hour, so that was very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And then um, what was it? On I can't remember what part of Canada, but it's over on the west coast. Uh,
Toronto.
no, all the way. It. I'll think of it, but Vancouver, Canada.
Oh,
Vancouver.
Vancouver,
So
West
I heard
Coast.
that it was a very beautiful place, very diverse, and so I wanted to go there and see how diverse and how beautiful it was.
Vancouver's a nice area.
Yeah, and so I ended up ultimately going down with my sister, uh, and we went there. And that's when I joined the military. After about a year of being down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, I was just
What branch of the military?
Marine Corps.
Marine Corps. He was serious. Okay.
Well, my brother, my older brother, he's a veteran Marine also, and so I didn't want him to have nothing he could say about me or to me. and I didn't want no shoulda, coulda, woulda. So I joined at the age of 29. I had to get waivers for everything. My mother wrote notes to try to keep me from going and all kinds of stuff.
Oh my.
And but I was determined to go,
Mm.
and there I went.
Okay. So coming from a place of growing and wanting more and a sense of belonging to something more important than just a job, you joined the service.
Yes.
What was your idea going into the service of what you could contribute being a young black man to the armed forces?
Um, Being a part of something that was greater than myself, being able uh, to harness all of that energy that I couldn't seem to figure out into a direction that was going to lead to great opportunities, and 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 I still had a lot of, I don't know if I would say rage, but I had a lot of, you know, unsat energy that I needed to get out. So the Marine Corps was great for me, you know.
I see.
Um,
Be you all you could be, and as well as
that was the Army.
intensity.
That was the Army.
Oh, but I'm just saying, you wanted to be more and
Yeah.
part of more, and then the intensity.
Right, right.
I'm not going for the phrase of different service branches of the service, but yeah, military usually has to do with an intense pride in your country and an honor that you have intrinsically and wanting to serve and give your life for the country. To me, that's a great calling. But I don't think that most young people know what they're getting into because we are supporting a government, or may I say, should I say, a regime that doesn't always reflect our interest as black people.
And that was another, that piling on top of that, that was another thing. So for me, it's like, after putting my life on the line and sacrificing myself to whoever, those that love me, like me, or dislike me and hate me, then for me, I've done everything I need to do in order to let anyone and all know that I've done the things I need to do to be able to have a voice fully, not
Right.
and not to be questioned about my integrity, my loyalty, my or any of my patriotism towards the people that I live around and with. You know, whether I agree with them, whether I agree with you or not. You know, I put my name on the line to not come back if that was the case, regardless if you don't like me or not. I
Right.
love you enough and care about where we are enough to say, hey, I'll be the one in front of the bullet if it needs to be.
That's true. I mean, people don't look at blacks as having that patriotism that we really do have because it's a promise that we're looking at when we look at America, the promise of becoming that more perfect union, becoming that better place, becoming that place that dreams and goals are made of. And so when a black person joins the service, we're looking at where we are now, and we're also looking at where we've been and traditionally how we've been recognized and how we're treated. So to put your life on the line for someone who hasn't treated you as fairly as some of the other citizens is a big thing. So I think that blacks have been and shown to be more patriotic than a lot of the other citizens here because we're definitely searching and striving for that more perfect utopia of a government, a democracy, where we're doing it for all. We may have disagreements, we may not agree on everything, but for the most part, the big things we agree on are rights, our freedoms, our choices, um, the ability to have a good life and seek liberty and justice and freedom and to be treated equally under the law and under the rules of governance. So,
And I think it's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome also.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
We also are definitely suffering from a degree of Stockholm syndrome where you love your captor and you've developed a relationship with the person that is oppressing you, your oppressor. So we suffer from that a great deal, along with a lot of leftovers from the Willie Lynch syndrome, where we are divided and separated by turning our own people against each other to be the gatekeepers and the snitches that keep us down and oppressed. And a lot of people don't realize the part they're playing when they support an oppressive regime that keeps us in that spot and wants to marginalize our success and our abilities to thrive in this system. I know that you faced some trials and tribulations in dealing with people since you've been out of the service and tried to give back to your community. I met you during the water crisis. I re-met you during the water crisis. And at that time, you were one of the only hubs in Flint that constantly had water. We're paying people to help distribute it. And
over 100 employees.
yes, you had a large payroll. But before we get to that, let's talk about what you wanted and desired after you got out of the service and came back to the Flint community. What did you see when you came back, and what year was that?
Well, I got out of the service 2012 and moved back to Flint 2014,
Okay, that was the year of the water crisis.
January 2014. It was I actually was on the news the day that I moved back because we came back. It was a blizzard going on, and so I was so. To rewind just a little bit, make a long story short, is that the reason I got out of the military is that somebody that I didn't know, we didn't know each other from anywhere. I didn't know them. I didn't get their kids pregnant, didn't beat nobody, nothing. I was driving back to base from my sisters in Winston-Salem back to Jacksonville, North Carolina, and some random person who happened to be a white woman made a phone call and said I had a bomb in my car. So I had half the state of North Carolina looking for me.
Wow.
And when they caught up with my vehicle, they shut down the expressway. SWAT was there. Probably about 100 or 200 vehicles were there. 'Cause like over 8 counties.
Wow.
So
So this was as a result of one call from a Karen that you didn't even know. And she just looked at you
for whatever reason,
and called your plate number in and said that you had a bomb.
and this was around 2 weeks around the time Trayvon Martin was murdered. So it was very interesting because the first person to put their hands on me was Internal Affairs from Alamance County, North Carolina, and
Wait a minute. Let's back up. Rewind. Their hands on you, which means that, okay, after the standoff on the highway,
right,
you were incarcerated?
yes,
Oh my God. Okay, so it escalated from just a Karen making a call to you shutting down interstate expressway
yes,
and being arrested.
yes. I was swatted pretty much.
Okay.
They made that call and
Swatting is when someone erroneously calls in a complaint to law enforcement to bring out all forces, all the manpower and firepower they have to attack this situation. So he was swatted, and that's very dangerous. That's why you can't get away with doing this. It's a crime, but some people get away with it often and weaponize the police against our community.
Well, she got away with it because when I was in court, she told one of the sheriff's deputies that she was in fear of her life because I was a Marine, and she didn't feel comfortable being in court, and so they told
How
her
did
that
she know you were a Marine when she called in the?
because it ended up on Fox News. So
Did you have any stickers or license plate or anything that alluded to the fact that you were a vet?
no, but being that I was my vehicle was attached to Camp Lejeune, they when they run your plates, if your vehicle is attached to that base, they know that you're from that base. So none of that mattered. None of that was a concern.
Okay, we're
And
going to touch on that again too,
yeah,
that Camp Lejeune, because you came back here in 2014 after leaving Camp Lejeune, another notorious water crisis situation where the residents and members of the service were poisoned by the government. So, okay, go ahead.
so yeah, so that's the gist of it. It's a lot of details and
Okay,
stuff
so
inside of it. But fast forward back to 2014, I moved back. I was on the news because the blizzard was going on. They were like, "Well, what do you think about this blizzard?" And I said something goofy like, "I love it," blah, because I was happy to be back home. Because after that ordeal, I had dealt with so much depression
oh wow,
and because I transitioned out the military, and um, I was trying to get deeper into the military. I was trying to become an operator in MARSOC, but my body wasn't holding up to that. So I tried to do a lat move into counter intel so I could still work with operators and to get the training, even though I wouldn't have to do all of the things they did.
so were you affected by the water at Camp Lejeune?
That happened before me. So that time period with Camp Lejeune, the water was still nasty and stank and all that other stuff. But as far as them and the basis of the poison that they saying happened before, years before I was there, a decade or so.
A
before.
decade. And we're still dealing with the water crisis in Flint a decade later. So we know how clean that water was.
So yeah, I didn't, to my knowledge, and to what I was told, no, I was not poisoned, but it would be sarcastic, ironic. However, if I was poisoned at Camp Lejeune and poisoned at Flint simultaneously, like what is this conspiracy all about me? Like, what?
Right.
But
So you came back, and after being railroaded in a SWAT crime,
yeah,
and you were ready to serve, and you came back in January 20th. Typically, every year from January 20th to February 1st, you're going to have an ice storm. I know this because my birthday is January 29th, and I've had many a birthday canceled because of the ice storms. So it was one of those big ice storms where things get shut down, and you were just happened to be interviewed.
yeah.
And then when you came back, were you living at home?
Yeah, I stayed with my parents for a while. That was what the thing was. But I just wanted peace of mind. I just wanted peace and some kind of go back to that thought process of creating a family and a stable environment.
Okay.
That was where my goals and where I wanted to go with things. I had volunteered in North Carolina before I joined the Marine Corps with Habitat for Humanity. So that thought process crossed my mind. Like, let me see if they have any homes
Okay.
or programs where I can get at home through them.
Habitat Humanity for Humanity is a program that was developed by former President Jimmy Carter, and has done a lot of good in the neighborhoods and communities, but has seemed to have gotten off track lately. They seem to have a different mission. Now, when you worked with them in Carolina,
So Jimmy Carter, he was the celebrity that endorsed them to help them to expand where they have become now. It was a couple, I believe, man and woman that created that established the Habitat for
okay,
Humanity organization, and then Jimmy Carter took that on.
and made it nationwide.
Right, like Clinton moving to New York.
Hmm. That's another story.
Right.
Gentrification. Anyway, so you got involved with Habitat. You liked what they were doing at the time. And when you came to Flint, how did you get connected with Habitat?
I reached out to him.
You
I
reached out
reached
to
out.
them
Yeah.
and you saw that they had some grants and programs that were
No, I was just looking for a
interesting.
house. I was just seeing what I fit as far as a home because I was receiving disability at the time. I think I was 70% disabled through the VA at the time. Currently, now I'm 100%. Um, but I was trying to see what I can find that fit, what I was receiving at the time. So um, I went and asked about what they had available. Told them, gave my stats, veteran, disabled, and um, I don't think the first time I spoke with them, it didn't click, but the second time when I went back around and they were, because the first time it was like, hey, we'll see what we got, then come on back and we'll check out and see
Okay, who
what's
was the
going
director at that time?
on. The director at the time, the person I spoke to, or my contact was Juan Zuniga, but the director was Margaret Cato
Okay.
at the time. And so Juan, he was the one that was guiding me to what they had available. Once I met him the second time, he's like, hey, have you ever thought about having your own business? And so for me, that was just almost like, are
Mm.
you offering me candy? Like,
Right.
so
Right.
uh,
So there was a program that was available,
the work live program,
the Work Live program. And what did that entail?
uh, where I would have residents at the same place I had a business. So
So you were working and living in the same
yes,
structure.
it'd be commercial and residential
Now, did you have
simultaneously.
anything to do with the rehab of this property?
Um, I had to put sweat equity in to to far as part of my payment or part of the
The
project going
purchase?
forward. So, but with that particular situation, they were able to um, they were able to get funding, and they pushed the program. It's if you look it up on any news outlet from here in mid Michigan, they had grants and things they got specifically for me being a veteran and them being able to do that project.
Oh, so through helping you, they were actually helping their own organization.
Almost definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, did you find that that situation was good for both parties, or was it one sided?
Um, it started out great. I was full. The glass was half full for me because I'm home. I get to be in an environment where I'm helping people that I know. I'm able to be a part of the fabric in a different way and relearn the city, not just based on how I was raised, but based on what it looks like from a different perspective.
Mm.
So it was exciting.
About how many hours of sweat equity do you put into something like that?
I don't remember the hours, but mine was a little different because the Flint water disaster crisis was going on, and I became the poster child for that program here. Uh, a lot of the sweat equity I was doing was like community type stuff,
Community service work.
doing interviews and being around different political leaders and just stating my story.
So they
You
were
know,
you were like they were parading you around as a prize,
that was
as
part of it.
their
Yeah.
token. Look at our token veteran.
Yeah, so that's part of it. But I put in a few hours here, but my back was it was it, I have pinched nerves and bulging discs in my back as I'm told, and as my back reacts to certain things, so I wasn't able to be as physical as I would have liked to have been.
Okay, so the hands-on part, as far as construction and rehabbing the house, you only had a few hours in. But as far as marketing for the program and being their spokesperson, how many hours would you guess you put in?
A lot,
A lot.
because
Like
it was
even distributing water, I would
well, that
say.
was separate, so that came later. So
Okay.
so the thing with the water was after after everything was kind of in motion,
Mm-hmm.
it was no motion.
Oh.
So I was trying to figure out what was really going on. So I was, just pretty much bugging the heck out of Juan, asking him what the next steps were and what was going on with this, that, and the third. And so
And that was during the building process?
that was during just to get the thing stripped down to start anything.
So you actually saw the property before it was
Yes.
anything was done
Yes.
to it, when it was in its
When-
demolished
when it looked like it was
state.
smoking crack. And
when it looked like an abando.
right. And so
Okay.
just to give Juan Zuniga props, his customer service and his acumen towards me was very cordial and very cool. He didn't have any bad vibes, in the sense of how he treated me. But nothing was getting done with the program itself, because they had other
Kind of stalled out.
locations that had been waiting and then dormant for a few years.
Wow.
And the very first program, very first home that they did, it was out of the words of someone that was from there, failed.
Wow.
So I was
So they had a lot wrapped up in the success.
I was the fourth live work project that they had. So they had one
in Genesee County?
Yes.
Okay.
So they had the one that was on the directly across from where the house was that I was in. It was on the other side of that restaurant.
And the area we're speaking of is the Grand Traverse downtown district, and where the White Horse Tavern is and Totem Books. He was directly next door to Totem Books and across the street from the White Horse Tavern. Okay. Well, this is just part one of our interviews with George F. Grundy II. And we just got an intro to how he came back to be in Flint. And I hope you join us for part two. This series is called Word on the Street. And what it is, it's a different venue that we're establishing here at Out of the Mud, Inc. And it's where people tell their own truth and get their word out on the street. So we talk to individuals that are community activists and artists from different venues. And we want to thank you for joining in with.
But before you go, let's see what's some of the comments. I couldn't see the very first.
Oh, we want to address some of our live comments before we leave.
Thanks, cuz I appreciate it.
Hee-haw.
What did do, Grundy?
Paul Blight, I don't want to butcher his name. He said good. It must have been about something he was talking about. And then you got George Cooper said, Mr. Grundy Jr. is responsible for influencing me to get my degree in computer information systems.
That's what's up, Big G.
Now, see, that's what we're going to get to is George's influence in the community. But first, we got to introduce you to George and let you know how he came to come back to Flint and be our favorite veteran. And we want to thank James Mayberry for being one of the executive producers, and George,
AKA James Mayfield from Mayberry.
That's because he's a goat. What he does. And so I always get that confused a little bit. But then we also have George Grundy, one of the other producers at Out of the Mud Inc. Media.
George F.
And we
Grundy
want to
II.
thank you for allowing us to have this platform to introduce you to the community and the world and let them know what inspired you and got you to the point where you are now.
And I'd like to say I appreciate you for choosing Out of the Mud Incorporated to be able
always,
to put your
always.
content here.
Thank you. Thank you. So we hope you join us for more sessions of Word on the Street and continue to follow Out of the Mud Media Inc. for some of your information and media enjoyment.
Like,
Thank
share,
you.
and